Hello, and welcome to episode number 4 of Boutique Talk. My name is Jake Boston, otherwise known as Steelbook Obsessed on all of your major social media platforms. And if you want to listen to all things physical media related, then you've come to the right place. Every week, I will have a new guest on to talk about their experiences with the medium. And today, my guest is an artist that has illustrated such IPs as Venom, Punisher, Terminator, and Black Panther, just to literally name a few of the dozens. And whenever his art is on a physical media release, I immediately become more interested. Let's say hello to Orlando Mexifunk Arocena. Orlando, how you doing, man?
Hey, Jake, what's going on, man? Woo!
Yeah.
Hell
I always
yeah!
hype the people up whenever I have them
No,
on.
it's fantastic. I mean, you rock. I mean, you're oh my god, you're one of my favorites up there as far as like within the steelbook community, man. I mean, you do so much for the community and for us, and I really appreciate it. I really, not only do I love seeing some of my artwork up on, throughout your days and your posts, but man, it's really you really have fun, man. You make it seem like fun, and it's like edutainment, man. It's really informative.
That's what
Seriously.
I enjoy this stuff behind me, so I want to make sure that the people that are following me, either they like movies and they have no idea like this stuff behind me even exists,
Yeah.
or just to get like the new people in, or people that love it, I just want to keep them. And yeah, you have
Oh,
a
man.
big reason why I started following artists and the way they do their physical media releases. You were the first one that
Oh, man.
my favorite steelbook 2 years ago was T2, and
Oof.
I had no idea who did the art, but I loved it so much that I dug. And as soon as I saw your name and your Instagram account, I just kept on scrolling and scrolling. I'm like, dang, this dude has done a ton of great stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a very, very fun commission to be the art director, executive creative director over at Lionsgate, Aaron Gershon, who's a very good friend of mine. That year he really wanted to do, he's a big fan of so many artists, and just particularly this genre of like, physical media, that he was like, I really want to try to do something different this year. I'd like to try to team up certain artists and pair them up to do just one title apiece.
Yeah.
So for T2, I got paired up with a good friend of mine, good vector sister of mine, Tracy Ching, and it was great. It was great. I think both of our styles threw down very, very, very well within that one title.
Since we're talking so much about it, I have gathered all of your steel books that you
Woo!
have. I've got a stack right here and an even
Woo!
larger stack of like one of my favorite steelbook lines that have ever happened right here.
Oh my god.
So I am going, since let's just do this an organic conversation.
Sure.
Can you talk
Let's
about
go.
how your artistic method went into creating T2, because oh my god, I love this thing so much. Here, I'm gonna kind of go a little big on here so I can show your beautiful artwork.
Oh man, these guys, Aaron and his team, really did their homework. I mean, they really love the physical media, and not only do they love to get excited about the artists that they're going to team up with for the titles, but they're as excited about how it's going to be produced in such a premium quality, right? They're not just like, oh, let's slap the artwork on there and just spit it out. I mean, they really go into, how many varnishes and whether they're going to have the aluminum steel actually show through and use that as a benefit within the graphics and the whole visual aesthetic. And when we were doing this for the outside, I was like, I love collaborating. I love communicating. When I'm in a team initiative, I'm like, hey, what do you guys want? And they're like, what do you want? And I was like, well, let's start putting down what we don't want. How about that? And right off the bat, what resolved out of that was that they were like, hey, we're big fans of your portraits, but I think that you could really do something cool if you had a portrait bleed into kind of, the environment. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. Yep. And that's all. That was basically the guardrails. They were just like, go to it. Putting in Edward Furlong and Sarah Connor in the actual
eyeballs. Yes.
Was like just a few Easter eggs of putting that in there and having fun, really having fun. And I remember submitting the actual first few vectors, because I did it all within vector, all the sketch work
Mm-hmm.
because I was pressed for time. When I'm pressed for time, I just jump right into Adobe Illustrator and just
I'm going to
start.
show some of that right now while you're talking about it.
And yeah, when I sent them my first few roughs, they were like, "Hey man, are we gonna get a few more flares and a few more of those color gradients that your artwork has such a signature for?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, the crazy thing is that you need to envision where they might fall because I throw a lot of that stuff in towards the back end of it. Yeah, there's artists out there that's like either start with like eyes or end with eyes. I'm like the eyeballs and all the last remaining flares and crazy energetic lighting are like the last few things that I throw in there.
Sure. And the eyeballs, honestly, I didn't notice until like the third or fourth time I looked at them. Like, oh my God, John and Sarah Connor are in each eyeball. And that blew me away. I also love how these Lionsgate releases, man, they have artwork on the inside and out, and you have like character shots on the inside
Yeah.
of both Terminators. It's so cool looking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so great to see what Tracy Ching was doing on her end. She was basically doing the interior spread,
Nice.
right? And she was also doing the actual sleeve, with Arnold,
Sure.
in flesh with his glasses. And I had no idea, like, hey, how are we gonna tease that there's another piece of artwork underneath? You know what I mean? And I said, okay, I'm gonna butt out of it. You guys handle it, and I just want to be surprised. And I was, sure enough, I was really surprised on the end product, and I was just like, I was clapping and applauding, until the cows came home.
Yeah. Some of my favorite Lionsgate steelbooks do that because the slipcover looks nice on its own, and then you are just in for a whole new world of fantastic artwork.
I'll give you a little trivia. I'll give you a little trivia. All right, and maybe I'm tooting my own horn on this one, but Lionsgate, all their steelbooks, before Ghost in the Shell would basically use that sleeve to print the title of the movie.
Yeah,
and very, very minor associated graphics.
Right.
When they commissioned me, my first commission with them, my first team up with them was Ghost in the Shell. Right, 25th anniversary of it. Yeah. And they were like, "What would you like to do?" And I was like, "Well, listen, this is what I want to do. I want to basically push that slipcase in an area where it should be with this title, with this property of this title." And they're like, what does that mean? I was like, well, since it's Ghost in the Shell, I want to make sure that we use that slipcase to show the exterior version of her. That way, when you slip it off, you see the interior mechanic version of her. And since then, that's when they started actually using printing and telling more of a visual narrative to entice the audience. Before that, it was just logo slopping. So, I mean, I remember Aaron telling me, we just made some history here, man.
Yeah. And honestly, that's really evolved the art of steelbooks. It really has. It just adds a literal layer on top, and you can just add so much into just that little element like you were talking about. Add more art onto art.
Oh, just wait till what's going to be coming down the pipeline. I just met up with him in Pasadena, and we just had dinner just talking about, where can we push the medium? Yeah. So things are going to get really exciting within the next year and a half.
Yeah, there was one release that they came out with this year called Sisu, and they had the slipcover go on horizontally instead of vertically. Yep. So that blew my mind a little bit. I'm like, there can be so many things to go with this way too. And just how to put a slipcover onto a steelbook. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like a few years back, I was doing a lot of editorial magazine illustration, posters for both limited edition collectors and just regional theaters. And I was seeing that, somehow there's going to be a shift within physical media, and somehow there's going to be a big play or a sidebar to home entertainment. And I'm lucky that I played my cards right, because that's, back in 2017, that's when I got the door knocked for opportunity. And they're like, "Hey, would you like to do, at that point, it was like, would you like to do a 25 title takeover for horror for Walmart?" And I was like, I was packing up and getting ready to jump on a plane to Colombia. Well, I was going to San Francisco for Adobe, and then to Colombia, and then a week at the Miami Ad School to teach. Pretty busy that year.
Right.
and this call came in, and it wasn't an email, it was a call. So I was like, listen, can we do this like later on when I land in San Francisco? Can I catch up with you guys? And they're like, no, we need to know now. We're up against the 8 ball. Matter of fact, if you could submit like a quick sketch, and within 15 minutes, they had me on the hook. And I was like, okay, I'm totally down. Give me a title. And they're like, Black Swan. And I was like, all right, cool. Let me just give you a sketch that you could feed into MGM 20th Century Fox. This was with Neuron Syndicate at the time.
Yes.
And the actual, there it is. So much, man. Yeah. And the actual thumbnail that I just chicken scratched, that I threw down within 10 minutes was enough for them to go, okay, give them the green light. And, since then, that 25 title project ended up being whittled down to, I think, 19. Mm-hmm. And, I was just amazed that they were like putting my name on all the signage at Walmart, and it was an official takeover. And I ended up flying up north to go get my mom and drive her to Walmart and totally surprise her, at which point she was like, these jokes of yours, they're getting too expensive, man. They're going to turn this, they're going to throw all this stuff out. How'd you get in here and put all this stuff up? And I'm like, no, this is legit. I was like, this is legit, Mom. She's always been questioning, like, how, what kind of living or career is it to be an artist? She's first generation, so she's, so at that point, when she actually saw that it was real, she was like, holy crap, she was amazed. And, I ended up having the studio send her out the gold Clio that I won that year. I never even got to held it. I was just like, send it straight to her. She deserves it.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about the Clio? I don't know if that hasn't really like gotten into the mainstream. It's an award for physical media, correct?
It's an award. It's an overall award for entertainment, right? So you have your Oscars, you have your Emmys, you have your Grammys, right? In the world of entertainment and advertising, there's the Clios, right? In the world of advertising alone, like commercial advertising, you'll have the Clios, you'll have pencils, you'll have the Cannes Lions, right? Which is also part of, double dips into like the Clio area. And it's basically like the Academy Awards for entertainment.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've won 9 so far. Is that correct?
If you include the one that I gave to my mom, yeah, that's 10.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I'm kind of scrolling through the ones that you did last year. No. You won 5 last year.
Yeah, and I've had previously 5. Yeah, so it was so funny. I was talking to my buddy Aaron again from Lionsgate, and he's like, "Did you get last year's Clios?" And I was like, "No, I haven't even ordered them yet." And he's like, "Well, you've already got enough, man. How many more do you need to have up on the mantle?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm Hispanic, so we love metal and we love trophies."
You can never have enough, though,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, but it's quite an honor to be part of that whole group and collective of every year of like, really, really astounding, creative that goes into the whole entertainment sector of things. Seriously, so I mean, congrats to everybody out there that's either been nominated or actually taken home a piece of metal, a Clio. So
yeah, that's what they always say. It's always an honor just to be nominated, right?
Yeah, seriously. Any type of acknowledgement, whether it's a click of a like or an email saying, "Hey, I really like what you've done." I mean, that's all a benefit. You know what I mean?
Well, I know we talked a little bit about the Walmart Dia de los Muertos line.
Yeah.
You said you made 19 of the paper ones. Do you know how many of those were transferred to steelbooks? I want to say it's like 16, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they're shy of either reaching a full. I think they did 16 or 18. Yeah, I know they're shy.
I want to say it was 16 because Best Buy came out with the steelbooks, and I distinctly remember seeing a paper end cap where they just had all of them, and it was 4x4. So I want to say it was 16, but those definitely captured my eye. And when they were released, they were only like $9.99. Like they just kind of boosted those things out, and I picked up a ton of them
with the coloring book inside. And no, that was a good added mix to it. There were so many titles a part of that. First, after supplying that 15-minute sketch and then jumping on the plane and then getting over and continuing the conversation, I was like, okay, great. I'm gonna have to do this all on the road because, further on that calendar year, I ended up, going to Colombia and meeting this woman that would end up becoming my wife in just a short time. And I remember traveling with my rock star, black case to, accompanying my computer, and I was just taking that everywhere to my Airbnbs and all that. So I actually did that whole series on the road, not even in my studio. I did it on the road at Airbnbs, and I ended up dislocating my shoulder at one point and having to draw just from the elbow to the wrist and getting it done. And
dedication.
Dedication. But at the same time, there was a lot of back and forth between me, the studios, because at one point, after we've already gotten like a majority of half of the titles approved, somehow there was an internal rift within kind of like the senior guard.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, hey, we're beginning to think that there might be some backlash within the Latino community, that we're celebrating something cultural through horror. And it might get a backslash of it. And that's an example of like marketing, right? Yeah. That's totally not in the know.
Well, they're always thinking of worst case scenario.
Well,
too.
Yeah,
they want to have a PR disaster on their hands. Yeah.
And they have to, because they have to make the investment.
Right.
But I let them know that I was like, well, you've got a Latino artist who's a big fan of horror, who knows a bunch of communities of other Latino aficionados of horror.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think that you might be, too worried about the cultural aspect and not really embracing the insights that I've already delivered to you. So I mean, that's another thing with my background. Having been a creative director, a design director, a strategist before I went independent. I went independent in 2012, but I've been in the industry since 1997.
Oh wow.
I don't mind talking to the account managers or the account executives if I have to.
Sure.
I understand their language. I understand their concerns. And I know that it's a collaborative effort.
Right.
The worst kind of conversations are the ones that you don't have a voice to actually be a beneficial part of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so. I'm part of a corporate system as well at my job, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops. Everybody's going to jump through a lot of hoops and have a lot of compromises to get anything done. It is nuts. At the end of the day, you all have one common goal, to have something great for the company you're working for. So, yeah.
No, I'm very thankful that, the end result, they put it out on paper, and then a year later they made steals. And I'm so thankful that it's been kind of like, embraced and appreciated by the community. And, I've get so many, emails that are like, hey, thanks. I mean, this past weekend in Pasadena, doing the H45 with Printed in Blood, I had folks, totally not realize, my name, right? I mean, I don't go after so many, audiences, and, I'm not one of these guys that's rocking like, 100,000 fans or followers on Instagram. I keep pretty solid. And some of these folks would come up and be like, hey, oh yeah, and they'll talk about that, and I'll just sink into like, hey, well, do you collect steelbooks? And they're like, oh yeah, I do. And I'll just pull out my 5x7 promo cards, and I'll be like, well, here, pick one, or pick as many as you want, take them home with you, and they'll go through them. They'll see the Chucky, Child's Play, Dia the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, or the Young Frankenstein, or just the Carrie, and they're like, these are yours? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God, I've got all these at home. I didn't know it was you. And I'm just like, I wasn't expecting you to. You know what I mean? But thank you.
Well, speaking of this line, I've got a bunch of them. I'm going to show them off. If you want to say like your 2 cents about the title, or memories of drawing it, or anything like that, or your thoughts of the franchise or anything, I'll try to go in semi-alphabetical order. I think I got them pretty good.
Yeah.
So first one.
That was one of the last ones. Okay. And towards the last tail end of like the last 10, I think, or last 5, the studio was like, okay, can we somehow lighten up the whole face, Dia de los Muertos makeup, and try to just do something? Because again, they were getting worried, so they were kind of just like trying to phase it out And I was like, sure, no problem. So that was like one of the last ones. And I remember I submitted like an alternate, which was actually Abe Lincoln with his tall hat. And it's all orange. And it was really, really cool. But they were like, no. We want the actor and try to limit the amount of face paint you put on.
Sure.
So it was, it was entertaining. It was a challenge.
Next one of my favorites from this line, Chucky, Child's Play. Looks
that's
amazing.
My favorite, man.
Is it?
Yeah, that's my favorite. I mean, part of what I was doing at the time was like putting out this whole kind of signature word of mouth type of, composition. And I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect for this whole series because, I'll just reposition the title and make the title part of the artwork.
Yeah.
And with that, I think as soon as I started, there weren't that many revisions at all. That was just like, get it done. And I got lucky with just the amount of like information and culture that I put on his face. Yeah, it was great. That was one of the fun ones.
Looks menacing.
Yeah.
The one I'm going to pull next is probably like the most fearsome one I've seen. Whenever I make a video of this, people are shocked. And that one is Carrie. This one is absolutely intense, man.
Yeah. I really had to go off on that one. I really wanted to bring in the whole fiery appeal and bring in that whole blood factor, So instead of just covering her whole face, I really wanted to make sure that the blood trickling down had some type of functionality to give her the contour of like a skull or a sugar skull. Yeah.
And yet there's still like hearts kind of snuck in there too. It's nice.
There's a bunch of Easter eggs. That's what I love about just, the whole sugar skull, Dia de los Muertos. In Spanish, they're called Katrinas. There's certain elements, that are significant of the iconography that's placed around the face.
Sure.
Anything around the forehead here is basically your inner eye, and that's where that's what's captivating your soul or your mental thought, your train of thought. Anything around the cheeks is all about joy and appreciation, right? So it's a lot of playing within kind of a template that's been established within my heritage.
Sure.
For generations, and just bringing it to a more contemporary, cool, entertaining way.
And personally, I'm very novice when it comes to that culture. So hearing what you would put on the cheeks and the forehead and stuff, that's very, very cool information to have.
Awesome.
Learning stuff on here. That's what I want.
Man,
I want to
come on.
everybody.
Let's do it.
If I get informed along the way, that's
great.
Man.
Education's important, man, or at least sharing it.
Absolutely. Next one, when I saw this, I'm like, oh, okay, you're making a sugar skull out of The Fly, and this is a very smart way to do it. Oh, man. Yeah.
That was
how you're going to pull this off. This looks great.
I was quite worried because, I was like, I can't use Goldblum's face.
Right.
Because there's so many legalities when we're doing a lot of these steelbooks. Sometimes there's not enough timing to have to submit something where the actor's agent needs to get involved for resemblance purposes. So they're like, hey, no resemblances. That's why if you look at certain posters that might get commissioned for certain movies or to drive awareness on social, you'll see some of them have their backs towards you. Some of them a majority of them will be in silhouette. And that's not because, hey, I'm a silhouette artist, I like doing silhouettes. No, that's actually because there's no time to actually get a full facial portrait approved through the line in time for production. So, from the get-go, the brief would say, hey, no resemblances, find an alternate way to do it. And with The Fly, I was like, okay, great. Do I actually just build on top of that horrific monstrosity at the end? And I was like, let me stylize it. Let me just totally stylize it and have fun. And that's one of the most important things within what I do, is just trying to figure out the puzzle that's going to make the client and the audience go, that's cool, and then have fun with it. Right. I hate stressing out about my own projects or my own collaborations. I'd rather just ask all the questions up front, get them all ironed out, and then be like, okay, cool.
Sure.
I'll touch base with you next week and show you an update, and just have fun. Just have fun.
So did you get the Grundlefly skull all the way done, and then they kind of put the kibosh on that? So you're like,
no, okay, I didn't even attempt it, man. I was running with my pants on fire trying to finish 25. I didn't know that they were going to cut them down to like 19. So,
Right.
there's a few that were like, I have, which I've never published, Hitchcock, the movie Hitchcock. I mean, not Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock with,
Yeah.
what's his actor from Silence of the Lambs?
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
It was that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally have it all done.
Huh.
All done. And he's Alfred Hitchcock, but he's within a whole Sugar Skull kind of facade. And I've totally got all the other Easter eggs from all the different movies that, are attributed to that fantastic director. And they were just like, oh, I saw the spreadsheet come through and just a red line through it. And I was like, oh, that's a shame.
Right.
I was like, okay.
Especially when, like, I'm assuming every time you do a piece of art, you want to show as many people as possible. So when you're getting paid to do something and they tell you, nope, we're actually not doing this, that's got to be heartbreaking, man.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, I signed these contracts, and sometimes, I have the power or the fruition to circle things and say, listen, can I get this reworded or at least struck out? And when it's for some of these contracts, they'll, it's in there where it's like, hey, I can't post up any of like ideas or concepts that didn't get approved, or and there's quite a few of them. There's some really juicy ones that I did for Warner Brothers for the actual Joker global poster.
Yeah.
All right. Did
the Joaquin Phoenix one?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
I did about 10 of them, and they're like, nah, we're gonna go in a whole different direction.
Man.
And I said, okay. I mean, I still get paid for it, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I can't show any of them. So what I end up doing on the tail end is that I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that contract's done, and then I'll just quickly build up some of the ideas that I didn't put down and make them happen. Like I have, 2 or 3 Jokers that I actually built out of that.
Sure.
That are pretty signature pieces within my portfolio now. I've got, Joaquin Phoenix, big portrait of him, but inside his face are all these different mosaics of him within makeup or going through stress, and laughing. Or I did my my whole ghetto fab throwdown of him as the Joker, but with all this graffiti all around and holding up a mask. A mixture between traditional kind of Renaissance portrait painting and graffiti. So I mean, there's items like that I get really excited about. That I'm like, okay, well, we parted ways for this project. Hopefully, we could, you'll see this extension of it or this visual exercise and go, oh man, we should have had him go in that direction.
Right.
It happens. I mean, I remember when I first started off, my style was way too crazy for Lucasfilms. They had their own traditional visual, footprint that they wanted every artist to try to emulate. And when I submitted work for them, and they're like, no, you're just too crazy. It's just doesn't look like any of the stuff that we would want to put out there, and any of the stuff that our collectors would want. All right, fast forward, 4 years later, and I'm doing a big museum show for them.
Very cool.
Over in Europe, and then. Fast forward another 3 years, and I'm doing a whole bunch of, official artwork for them. So, I mean, when you're an artist, it's not a matter of changing your style. It's a matter of understanding that your time will come. It's just there's certain properties out there that have their own traditional anchor that they're still carrying it on, and then they got to figure out how they're going to throw that into water and set sail. You know what I mean? So
and you've built yourself up such a huge portfolio that's got to do a lot of the work, the heavy lifting for you nowadays.
No, it totally does. It totally does, and I'm very appreciative of the fact of not giving up. I mean, I have changed my style gradually, depending upon the property or the studio that's asking me for it. I'm just finishing up a project now where, they're like, hey, it doesn't have this from your previous piece, and it doesn't have that. I mean, like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, no problem. If you want the whole kit and caboodle, yeah, no problem. I thought, and then I'll add that stuff in, and then I'll give them like a fine print saying, hey, listen, since you still got to submit this to the actual brand, the owners of the brand, I'm sure we're going to get kickback because the lights are too robust. It's disfiguring, the characteristics of a particular character. These are things that I could, have foreknowledge and give them a warning to say, listen, you've got the clean version, and then you've got the holy smokes, everything's involved version. So you can sell them both, and I'll bet you that somehow we might get kickback that this one's too crazy.
Sure.
They're going to want to go with the more tamed version because that property hasn't been shown this way.
Right.
2 years from now, they might come back and go, we want this one now, and that happens. It's just like anything, you got to basically allow certain properties to grow and become as exciting as the way that you envision them.
Right. I feel like ever since Disney bought Star Wars, they've done just that. They've been like, okay, everybody knows these characters. Let's have them interpreted and in as many art forms as we possibly can, just to branch out as wide as we can.
Yeah, I mean, that property's been around for so many generations. I mean, I'm one of the old cats that went to go see it in '77 5 times in that day because my brother left me at the movie theater to go have a date with his girlfriend. You know what I mean? So, I can understand that when you have these big, legendary, iconic properties that come from these studios, they're gonna be, they're gonna have a safety net, cradled around them, going, hey, we're only letting certain people touch this, and it's an honor for them to come around and go, wow, we want you now. We see what you can do and how exciting it is, how interesting it is.
Sure.
Give it your spin. And sure, I mean, there's no arguments there. I mean, I understand the word no, and when a client will go, hey, sorry, we don't see it. Okay, great, no problem. Thank you for your time. Now, if there's a no that comes after I've already put in the work and we signed the contract and there's a price tag there, well, then that no gets me paid. And I'm like, okay, fine. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, for the next one. I'm like, fine. You know what I mean? That's cool. I mean, there's so many things within this industry as being an artist that I see some of it being faded out. And then, I'm happy for certain things. You know what I mean? That's just a whole different conversation as far as estimating pricing, billing, usage, licensing,
Right.
Has nothing to do with steelbooks right now. So let's get back into steelbooks.
It's all good, man. Whatever tangents you want to go on, I am along for the ride at this point.
No, I don't want to tire out the audience by going, oh man, he's going to get into pricing now. What the hell is that all about?
No, anytime, personally, myself, anytime I can get a peek into this world, just to see how everything works, I'm fascinated. So I'm hoping that the audience is as well. Yeah. Well, let's keep on going with the steelbooks.
That was one of my toughest ones.
Why did you say that?
The Hills Have Eyes was one of the toughest ones because I couldn't use any type of actor resemblances, and I really, really wanted to use that one particular bald-headed character that's in the movie, and they were like, no, and I was like, oh my god, okay, great, I'm just gonna have to come about putting some, disformed figure, and when you're dealing with something that's so symmetric. As far as Dia de los Muertos kind of Katrina makeup design, the last thing that you want is something that's going to throw off your symmetry because of disfigurement. Sure. You know what I mean? So that was like a really difficult one to do because I was like, man, I got to make sure that he looks disfigured, but yet the whole Katrina aspect and how colorful and vibrant and upkeep it is, is still recognizable, or at least adds to it.
I think it looks great. Yeah, with the atomic bomb. Yeah. Very nice.
No, I'm glad how it came out, but if anything, that one particular title was the one out of the 25 that had me wrestling for at least 2 days, and I don't wrestle much, when it comes to this stuff. And for me to be constantly sketching and erasing or, moving and evolving for 2 days, I was like, whoa, this is exhausting, man. This is really exhausting. I have so many different iterations from as far as color palettes chosen. I was going to go with a bit more of a play of a really odd blue aqua tone behind them, and have everything very warm and sandy and saturated as a skin tone. And, visually it looks really, really cool and kind of odd and different, than what was out there. And then I said, no, I just got to make everything a bit more, hot and heated.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how it reads
extreme and ugly, so Sometimes I have a lot of fun making ugly things.
Right. Something that you could never make ugly is
Come
Megan Fox. We
on.
got Jennifer's body
Oh
right here.
man, no, that
Yeah.
was that was a fun one, man. That was a fun one because they were like, "Hey, she's getting too bloody," and I'm like, "That's not even blood. That's makeup. Remember, this
Mhm.
is all makeup. We're just putting makeup on these things, you know."
Right.
And as makeup, we have to have to play resemblance and play up a few things and make them look like they're makeup on there. So
That's
I
a
had a lot
hell
of
of a
fun.
sell you're doing there,
Yeah,
Ole.
no, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And this one, they were like, the only thing that they challenged me was that they were trying to put the word body in her mouth. And I was like, no, you can't do that. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, you have it on the other ones. And I was like, yeah, but, we're playing with her sexuality,
Yeah. Her
and,
whole thing is like kind of
her,
opening and devouring
exactly.
people.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I was
Mhm.
like, why would you want to cover up kind of these sensual lips that's going to draw you in? Let's just like, the Black Swan, let's have the rest of the title flow downward into her neck.
Agreed.
And that was one of my favorite ones.
Let's see here. Another J title we got here. Jeepers
Woo!
Creepers.
Oh, that one, Jesus, that one of my favorite. I love this whole franchise of
Sure.
these Cheaper Creepers movies. Seriously, and I had fun with this one just
Mhm.
because I was like, I wanted to totally show the whole
Yes.
element of
It
the
adds a
whole
lot to this one.
stretched skin, flared,
Yep.
and I could totally play up to that with like spelling out Jeepers and playing that up.
Mhm.
And I think the only kickback that I got was that there was somebody on the decision making side of the door, like, but you're revealing the bad guy too quick. And I was like,
Yeah. The
I'm
IP's been
guessing
out
that a
long
majority of these
enough.
people that are going to want to purchase this collection have already seen
Correct.
the movie, and that's why they're going to want to pick up the whole collection. I'm sure
Right.
that we're going to come across a few people that might not have seen the movie, but because it's in such a big, robust kind of 19 title, visual play
Mm-hmm.
at Walmart, they're going to be like, okay, well, I'm definitely picking this up because I don't want to lose out on the collection.
Yeah.
And they
I
watch
think
it.
people know
You know what I
Jeepers
mean?
Creepers by now anyway, whether you've seen the
Yeah.
movie or not. There's a big bad in there. So, yeah. What do you do? Okay.
Honestly.
Right. One of my favorite my favorite B movie of all time, probably. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I
Oh
love this movie
man.
with a passion. And when I saw this artwork, I just gasped. This is the first title I picked up when I saw that end cap.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yes, I love this movie.
This one was really, 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 fun to play with.
Mm-hmm.
The only hurdle was trying to make this sugar face paint work
Mm.
with an existing
Oh, yeah, the
clown
clown
face paint.
makeup.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I was like,
Mhm.
wow, are they going to clash? Am I going to be able to have enough that I'm not going to take away from the clown aspect, but I'm going to
Sure.
basically add with the whole sugar skull aspect? So um, it was a great mental puzzle, and I really love that movie, and I really enjoyed being able to have that one within that collection.
Right. Yeah, there's
That's
definitely
the
the
other
main
thing.
clown to go with, but I didn't know if you were going to do like one of four. There's so many clowns in this movie to
Oh
choose from
man,
too. They're all so unique.
trust me. I pitched that in with all of these titles. If I saw the possibility of like an alternate, or can we do a line extension if it has a series like a part 2 or a sequel, I was like, can we throw that in for next year? And since they were taking a risk and a gamble with me just for year 1, they were like, no, it's okay. And then year 2, they came out with the whole, printing it and producing it on Steelbook, which totally was a win for them as well.
Right.
That they never called me back up to say,
And
hey, let's do the sequels.
That baffles me so much, especially if you had the Steelbooks at that price point and they sold so well for you. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do a continuation of
Well,
those.
hey, I mean, they're listening now. I'm sure that there's quite a few of them listening now. So, I mean, if you're listening, hey, let's do the sequels.
Yeah.
I mean,
This line is fantastic. I know that
you're
you've
already
done this artwork
seeing.
before on other promotions. Like you did the Justice League in all of this artwork.
Yeah, I actually got called up by Warner Brothers to do just the whole Justice League team for Dia de los Muertos, and that was with the Poster Posse.
Mm-hmm.
And I was floored. Anytime that I'm able to like share my heritage through my creativity, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I mean, we tried doing that during the whole John Wick 4 creative exploration.
Yes.
You know, and where we ended up with the whole Baba Yaga split face thing.
I have a video of that. Let me pop that up.
Was from that. You know, I was
Yeah.
collaborating with. I think I was one of the first few artists collaborating with Lionsgate before the title even changed. When it was like the whole Japanese themed Spirit of the Warrior back in 2020, like December 2020, 2021, around there.
Mm-hmm. I love
But
this
yeah,
picture.
originally this all came out into. I submitted like 16 different concepts and sketches throughout the 2 years, and towards the tail end, they're like, you know, let's do this, but let's switch it up a bit, you know. And I was like, all right, cool, let's and the whole team was really giving their advice, and we were going back and forth, not in a negative way, but in a constructive way.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
can we have the whole high table, you know, iconography, you know, with the filigree and the whole, you know, elements of that play into, you know, the whole Baba Yaga mysticism, but yet trying to keep a sliver of him in his real world sense, you know. So this was really him having to go deeper than he's ever had to go, and possibly lose himself throughout that journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this was another high mark within my portfolio and my relationship with Lionsgate. So
it's a very cool piece, and I love on your if you're listening to this and you're not following Mexifunk on Instagram, I think you have to. He gives you a very it's honestly it's a must. I love how you give breakdowns of your art, because me barely being able to draw a stick figure, when I see like what goes into this piece, I'm always just in awe. I love it.
Oh man, I appreciate it. I mean, no, that's, you know, I've been doing that since I think I joined. I signed on to Instagram really late, you know, and having to have, you know, being a vector artist. If I don't show kind of the behind the scenes, the anchor points, all the different lines and tangents that go into it, then people just go, "Oh, that's Photoshop," and I'm thrown into the whole, you know, world of other Photoshop artists, right? Not saying anything disrespectful. I appreciate all my friends out there that are talented and do Photoshop art, but you know, illustrators totally not so forgiving. You know, a paintbrush or a pencil does not function as familiar as you would to have it be within Photoshop. You know, I'm plotting out points and anchors to make shapes, and I can't smear colors together. You know, all these blends of colors, and that's like coming back from, you know, all contributed because of my knowledge of traditional painting, right? That's kind of like that old Vienna school of layered, you know, gouache on top of gouache on top of gouache, and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. And that's why a majority of my files go from anywhere between like 150 layers to 750.
That's insane.
You know, and it's all vectors. So therefore, you know, these things don't weigh your normal footprint. You know, a file that large in Photoshop would be at least, you know, over 25 gigs, right? In Illustrator, it's less than a gig. You know, I could practically email it to you. That's what I love about Illustrator. You know, plus the fact that in Illustrator, if you were to say, hey, listen, I need this the size of the Empire State Building, since it's vector, I could totally expand it without losing any definition or quality or getting into the whole realm of pixelation, you know, and then send it to you. You know, you can't do that in Photoshop, you know. But that's one of the reasons why back in '97 I said, you know, I'm going to make a mental note to go play with vector, because it's a pain in the ass, and the industry, the commercial design agency world at that point, Illustrator was only being used for two things: building logos, because you could actually stretch them out, you know, to fit any type of printing need or production need, and then layout. You know, people were using it to actually put together their layouts for certain packaging or advertising or editorial spreads, right? And when I was working over at Troma Studios in Hell's Kitchen, that's when, you know, Lloyd Kaufman had the whole brownstone over there. And when James Gunn was working, I was basically going, okay, cool. What's this vector all about? And my first job was doing a mural for the side of the building that was about Toxic Avenger, right? The main mascot.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about vector. I did it all in Photoshop. I sketched everything out, scanned it. And my creative director was like, no, man, what are you doing? You need to do this in vector. And I was like, well, I kind of lied in my interview that I knew vector, and I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, you find it. He was like, you're a cool guy. You're awesome. You're talented. You need to find out how you're going to make that vector and deliver it by the end of the day, like you promised. Otherwise, pick up that cardboard box, put all your belongings, and, it's stereotypical New York agency type of way.
I feel like that's Trauma 101, like figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, figure it the fuck out. And if you get blood on your shirt from it, hey, that's just the way everybody else is dressed in the damn place. You know what I mean? Trauma was just such freaking rock and roll over there, man. I loved it. And yeah, I figured it out. I went a very easy route. I was a big fan of animation, right? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to basically build 3 layers, a highlight, a mid-tone, and a shadow, and just color block it. Mm-hmm. Right? The guy's green. He's got an orange shirt. He's got, hand wraps. There's not much more that I could add detail onto him.
Sure.
So I got lucky. And from that day on, I said, you know what? If everybody's so terrified of this program, then there's not too many people playing with it.
Right.
And if there's not too many people playing with it, then that means I basically have this possibility of standing out within this whole universe of digital artists that are playing with Photoshop. And that's what I did. And I never stopped. So when I post up to Instagram and I post up those behind the scenes, it's to show you that how much, playtime goes into one of my vectors, and that it's not Photoshop.
Very cool, man. I didn't know you worked for Troma, by the way. That's just a very cool point to have on your resume, for sure.
Yeah, I was there. That was my first gig. I was either going to go, Jesus. When I got out of school in '94 from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, there weren't any cell phones, or, we had big bricks, carry luggage type of phones.
Yep.
But we don't have them the way that they're consumer friendly now. And we didn't have computers back then, not everywhere. And when I graduated, I swear the world turned into a more computer literate place. And wherever I was trying to shop my portfolio, they were like, are you computer literate? Do you know Photoshop, Illustrator, Quark? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, take care, bye.
Right.
So I had to devise a whole alternate plan. And what I did was that I took a part-time job at the Warner Brothers studio retail store, one of their main headquarters in 57th Street, Manhattan, by Central Park. And I got in there with the intent that I was going to try to run a parallel strategy of, hey, if I want to be in the studio side doing all this artwork, but right now the only gate that's available for me is the brand and retail, somehow I'm going to go here, and somehow it's going to cross over. There's got to be a crossover bridge somehow, or I'm going to build it, right? I'm going to build it, seriously. Right. And that's what happened. I was folding, all this T-shirts and polos and stacking them and working part-time. And I was like, totally like, doing the whole front. Hey, welcome to Warner Brothers Studio Store. How you doing? At the front entrance. And then I started seeing that Whoopi Goldberg would stop by, and, Sylvester Stallone and all these other, actors that were either New York natives, or they were basically flying in and they were picking things up. And up on the 3rd floor was their animation gallery. And I got up there and I became friends with one of the directors. And I said, hey, there's a lot more to this that we could plan out. We should start doing like, premiere night. And whenever we premiere night, instead of doing a whole movie thing, like if it's a brand new cell that's coming from the vault, right? The water tower vault, then let's turn that into like an actual art gala. Let's roll out the red carpet. Let's get the studio lights out, and let's invite all these folks to like, a premiere night, open night, an opening. And since then they're like, oh man, let's do it. We did it. They flew me out to Burbank to actually become a bit more educated within their, the whole culture, and came back, and I ended up taking care of that. I had Mark Hamill be one of my main clienteles. he would call me up every now and then in that Joker voice, and like, "Hey, Orlando, you got any Joker cells with you? Did they come in yet?" And I would just be like, "Luke, you're scaring me, Luke. You're scaring me." But it was a fascinating time, and I got to the point where they made me a director for they opened up a new branch in 2 World Trade and Twin Towers, and I opened that up, and we did a show with Joel Schumacher for Batman Forever when that opened up, and it was really cool. I mean, I wish those times I had a cell phone, a mobile phone that I could totally just take all these pictures, that everybody was there. Right. But right after that, I still didn't have enough money for my computer, and so I ended up becoming a security guard at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I kind of shifted completely, and I said, you know what, let me go back and safeguard art, and at the same time, I'll be like this close to the Van Goghs and the Picassos and the Rembrandts, and let me investigate that a little further. And I ended up getting busted while drawing on post, and the president ended up yelling at me and seeing if I was any good, showed him my sketchbook, and to make a long story short, he let me know that there was a juried show every year for a selected few. I submitted, and for the 2 years that I was at the Met, I actually exhibited at their annual group show. So I actually have it in their records and my records that I've shown at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Since then, I've done quite a few different galleries within pop culture, within the traditional art aspect, or the pop culture aspect of like Miami Art Basel and the New York Art Fair. And I actually had I was invited to show vectors at the Western Eastern Museum of Ukraine. So I've there's a lot there's a lot of crazy past lives that I've had the opportunity to play with.
Quite the career, man. That's insane. So what made you start in the entertainment business? What kind of drew you into that path with your art?
Well, I mean, I started there back in 97 with Lloyd, right? With Troma.
But I mean, even
went into this whole commercial route. I went through this whole commercial route of like trying to figure out what this commercial world was really about, right? Okay. Advertising, brand building, right? Personality. Like, what is it about brands and what they do that we as consumers routinely go to the store and pick them up and spend money on? Whether it's through a whole heritage line, my grandfather buys it and I'm going to buy it now. You know what I mean? I wanted to figure all that stuff out. So I ended up starting a whole illustrated bullpen for Pepsi to save them, to save them money and like build out, inward, outward for a few years. I was a design director for Diageo, and I helped manage the visual personality across 8 different brands and help manage over 34 art directors a day. I ended up being the creative director for Toys R Us's magazine called Arzone.
Wow. I looked at Arzone quite a bit growing up.
No shit. Well, man. That's I inherited that from a friend of mine, and I changed the whole look of it. And it was great. It was great.
That was the video game sector, right?
Yeah, the video game lifestyle sector. Man. If you basically went in there, the magazine was for free, and it was a lifestyle magazine. Yep. And depending upon what season, would go either this thin or that thick. But I learned a lot throughout those years of hopping around different agencies and different brands. I went from Diageo to Pernod Ricard. I went from Pernod Ricard to Deutsche Wines. From Deutsche Wines, I ended up doing strategy and design for Timex wristwatches. And then at the very end of that, I was like, you know what? I just want to go independent. I want to go into my movie theaters and movie theater art. And when I did Iron Man 2, I did a triptych, and I posted it and I tagged Jon Favreau. And he was like, I love this. He shared it on his Twitter page. Awesome. And then he called me up and he was like, listen, I really love this. I want to own this. Is there a way that you could send me a print? I'll have my secretary or my assistant, talk to you and we'll have it done. And at that point, Hollywood started, softly knocking on that door and kind of peeking in and going, hey, is this where that crazy Mexican guy does his stuff, and I was like, sure, come on in. And, at that time, I got invited to be part of the Post Posse group. And I was like, they were pretty young. And I was like, hey, you know what? Let me come on board and let me share some of my insights as far as like commercial tactics and promotions that I've gained throughout the years.
Right.
So I basically helped them grow for many years until I was like, okay, cool. You guys got this is your this is your company. I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to be one of the associated artists. And if there's any hiccups or you need anything for me to investigate, I'm always a part of it. It's like my second family, So from 2010, I think 2011, around there, that's when I've been playing independent. And 2013, 2014 is when Adobe came by and said, hey, we want your artwork to be the splash page for Adobe Illustrator. And they were going to purchase a piece of vector that I had up on Behance for a while. And I said, no, you don't want that. And they're like, why not? It's beautiful. And I was like, but that has nothing to do with the brand, with the Illustrator as a brand. It has no personality, has no connection to it. It's just a pretty picture. It's not smart. And they're like, and I was talking to the executive creative director and the executive strategist, the brand strategist. And they were like, whoa, okay, this sounds interesting. What are you talking about? And I was like, well, the visual should, totally help elevate the audience that plays with it every day. It should be a whole reflection of them, plus a reflection of just the program itself, right? And they're like, okay, so what are you thinking? And I was like, well, let me draw things up and I'll get it to you. And they're like, well, we need it. It was a Friday, and they're like, we need it by Monday to sell in to the people, to sell into the rest of Adobe. And since they were looking at a piece that was already established, that they didn't have to worry about, hey, timetables. I did. So I was like, okay, listen, let me formulate something, put it into a deck, get you a few sketches, a few concepts. I'll have it to you by the end of the day. Because they're in like the West Coast and I'm in the East Coast, so I had a whole 3 hours time frame at my benefit.
Sure.
And they were like, that's insane. You can't do that. And I was like, who says I can't do it? I was like, let's have a playful game. Like, I already had met them previously, so I was like, let's have a playful game. And if I get this over to you guys before end of day, and you guys like it, I was like, you guys get me, a first class ticket and everything for Adobe Max, which is their big annual event.
Right.
And they're like, okay. And if we don't like it, but yet you still have to do it, I was like, then you could have it for free. You don't even have to pay for it. And I ended up building basically this female, really cool pop figure with big, huge Sophia Loren glasses, all these laser arrays and flares flying off. And she's got, tattoos on her hands that are basically the past icons of Adobe Illustrator from all the different intervals and years. Like, I leveraged everything. I put together a deck showing them where I was leveraging things from their own past, right? Which is the smartest thing that any designer could do, when you're able to feed into the past history of a particular property or brand and show them where you're picking it up, instead of just like, well, I kind of farted this out and makes no sense why I'm putting it here. You know what I mean? Has no relationship, so I was putting everything there. And at the very end, the Venus de Milo, that's always been kind of the sacred mascot for Adobe Illustrator, I had put on her neck, and she was pointing to the neck, kind of paying homage, reverence. So I presented this to them. They were just like, you are out of your mind. You just did all this within the past like 4 hours. And I'm like, yeah. And I wrote you a deck, an 8-page deck, that everything connects, not just sending you a picture. And they're looking at it, they're totally tossing it around. And they're just like, well, obviously you won, right? You won. But we do have one major concern. We're going to have to change something, and we don't know whether you're going to like it. And I'm like, oh, no. Okay, what's up? And they're like, well, that neck, that Venus de Milo, we got to get her out of there. And I was like, why? I mean, I was trying to reiterate all the good points about it. And then it dawned on me, because they were just like, because it's going to be global. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why? Well, and they're like, well, there's certain cultures and religions throughout the world that, shoulders are, they're
usually covered.
They're usually covered. They're kind of risque, so we can't do that. So we're gonna have to change that and find a new home for that area. And I was like, no, I got it. And they're like, oh, whoa, hold on. Like, wait a second. And I was like, no, seriously, I got it. She doesn't have to pay tribute to to her. She just what she should be paying tribute to is the pen tool. Because you need to master or become familiar with the pen tool if you're going to navigate and have fun with this program.
Sure.
And the strategist, he was just like, holy crap, you are freaking good, man. He was like, that makes really good sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're like, okay, well, can you finish it up? And well, they're like, well, I guess it's finished. Can you send it our way for Monday? And I was like, oh, dude, I gotta finesse everything, man. Yeah, give me the weekend that I'll get it to you. And you know, it's next year. Well, yeah, next year would be its 10-year anniversary that I did that job.
Very cool.
And it helped open up a lot of doors for me. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, you doing that in a 4-hour span and making all of these Walmart things on a very short timeline, that does not seem to scare you at all. It's like you thrive on not having a lot of time to complete what you need to do.
Yeah, well, you know, I had less gray hair back then.
Gotcha, man. Okay, I'm gonna try to start going back into the physical media stuff
No, man, go ahead,
I love hearing about your background and everything. I just want to make sure that we show these off at some point.
No problem. I mean, I'm gonna have like 2 days to share my background next week over at Adobe Max. You know, nice. I think they're gonna announce it tomorrow, but we might as well just break the ice and announce it here.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna have 2 sessions over at Adobe Max next week, and the sessions are gonna be on October 11th and 12th. Look it up on AdobeMax.com or the whole Adobe website. You know, you'll see me. You'll see me there, and you get to sign up for 2 days, and I basically take you through my whole portfolio, some insights, some watchouts as a professional creative, and then I'll do some show and tells and help you build your own arsenal of vector elements.
You're a wealth of knowledge, so if anybody here is into that kind of stuff, it's a no-brainer. My God, man. For you being in the industry for so long, you have nothing but knowledge to share.
And I love sharing it, man. Seriously. And, you know, sometimes I might just be a bit too obnoxious. You know, I'll go up to folks over at, you know, if I'm doing Comic-Cons or different events, you know, I'll go up to folks that I'll really fall in love with their art or the creativity or their vibe. And I'll be like, oh, man, I really got to, you know, hear me out. You know, and they'll be like, oh, dude, you're that guy who does that, man. You're that vector dude. Oh, man. I'm like, yeah, man, you know. Let me hit you with a few insights that totally will, if you take the time to invest the energy, it'll just take you onto the next level. So I don't, you know, I'm not one of these artists with a big high ego that totally hates the world and hates everybody that's, you know, within this industry or this community. You know, if you're going to be a part of a community, you might as well be functioning within giving a positive, you know, to help people, you know, build upon it.
And
you know what I mean?
Every time I talk with you, man, you're so enthusiastic about what you do, which I absolutely love. It's contagious.
I'm glad. I don't know. Thank you. There's so many people that are like, holy crap, your English is fantastic, man. I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, if you listen, it's got a big Bronx accent to it. So yeah.
Right. Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm going to awkwardly go back into Steelbook stuff. I
do
hope
what
you're
you
all
want to do, man. This is your show.
Okay. Next up, I have Poltergeist.
Oh, man.
Which I'm very happy you did the clown. I think that's like the main thing you got to do here.
We had to. I had to go with the clown. And it was tough. It was really tough because obviously there's 2 poltergeists in the world, you know, the original and the remake, and 2 different clowns, right? And I'm a big fan of the original clown, and like, oh yeah. And I really wanted to dress up this particular clown in that manner. And the first sketch that I sent through, I actually sent through on a very sly manner. I was like, hey, yeah, that's the clown. Here's the clown, man. You know, and they're like, hey, that's not the right clown. And I was like, damn it. You know, but I had so many different elements up on there, you know.
You still got the element, the main poster from the original movie in the eyeballs with like the TV screen that
we had to. It's almost as if the clown was like just sitting on the ground behind her, and just you're seeing the reflection through his eyes.
Right.
I had a lot of fun with that one, but initially I had so many horrific Easter eggs within that one than more than any other one, because there are so many things that I wanted to throw in there.
Sure.
Whether it's the the mud soaked corpses towards the end, whether it's the big Goliath demon, man, there are so many things, and they're like you're giving half the movie away. I mean, that was like some of the response that was like common coming back when, hey, you're giving too much of it away. And I was like, again, if they're buying this, they've already seen a majority of these movies.
Correct.
They're familiar with it.
And they might already own it, and they want to just get a second copy. Like, I feel like this line is for people that love these movies or just want to completely blind buy it, and they don't know what the movie is anyway, so they don't know what's getting spoiled on the cover. Like, honestly,
no, but it's one of my favorites, and man, I wish I could post up that initial clown sketch from the OG, you know what I mean? Because it was just horrific, man. It was horrific with that big grin.
Maybe one day in the future, maybe you will actually be able to get the 80s version on there, and you can.
Well, hey, man, I'm in talks to try to get my first book, my first of 3. I think I'm doing a set of 3. Yeah. So right now I'm in like big time negotiations with like getting the thumbs up to be like, okay, cool. You can include that. You can't include this. You got to give credits to that. When you're putting a book together, it's tough. It's really tough because there's a learning curve to it that I should have picked up earlier on with so much experience that I have that I didn't pick up on it. So the majority of all my contracts now moving forward, there's a stipulation there, big asterisk that says, I want all legal permission, right, without having to pay extra licensing, right, because we're sharing the artwork, we're owning the artwork, that I should be able to capitalize on this within any type of self-published book.
Sure. No, I think you have a big enough
that I work with.
Now.
They're like, give us an extra few days. We got to rearrange the contract, take it through legal terms, and then they're like, hey, no problem. They'll come back and be like, yep, we've got that for you, and that's a huge win. That is a huge win.
I can only imagine. Yeah. And your work is so vast that it makes sense that you are planning 3 books at once to have everything that you've done in there, man.
Well, I grew up with these world book encyclopedias that my mom got us, right? And in there would be under F for frog, right? Or no, amphibian, but then the illustration would be a frog. They would have these acetate sleeves of a dissected frog.
Oh wow!
That's all I'm going to basically hint at. Right? I'm thought of what one of my books could possibly.
I have an image in my head based on what you've posted on Instagram of what it could be. And it sounds amazing. That's a very cool idea.
We'll see. We'll definitely see. I mean, I'm totally being schooled on what makes a really good book and what's the production value and time frame. I owe it all to my buddy Steve and Phil from Printed in Blood, man. Holy cow, these guys are like the purveyors of like the pop culture printed published art books these days, man. They fucking rock, man. And I love being associated with them, man. They're my buddies. They're my bros. Screw that.
You just saying that aspect of a book definitely has me peaked. Be like, okay, this book might be something different compared to what your average artist release would be.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay. Also, very cool is this image.
Oh man,
love me some Tar Man. Probably my favorite Tar Man movie. It's just a blast.
Oh, when that came, when I was reading the list of titles of what they were going to want me to play with, and I came across that, I was like, so many directions I could have gone into, and I was like, no, it's got to be Tar Man. It's got to be hands down.
Yep.
Tar Man love with a hint of some Mexican funk on there, and when I was creating it, I was like, oh man, this title has way too many letters in it, man. I was like, what have I done? Where am I gonna position this title without obscuring everything about the whole Dia de los Muertos Tarman version.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really happy. That's one of my favorites.
Makes sense exactly where the words are on there. And just talking with you like we have for an hour, you seem to like your artwork seems to be what your attitude is with movies. You just absolutely love them. You have a passion for them. I love that. And especially your background in where you've worked in the past. I don't know. I love your Star Wars. You saw it 5 times in theaters in one day. It's great. I just love how you love the medium, and I think it shows in your work.
Hey man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm a big believer that if you're fortunate enough to find something that you're gonna want to wake up every morning and maybe sometimes not go to bed at night because you're in the middle of that, and you appreciate it, and it gives you it's almost like this reciprocation of energy, right? You're giving into it, it's giving back to you, or maybe it's already given to you, in the past, as a fan of the movies, me being a fan of the movies. I just love it. I think there's a Asian motto or some type of verbiage that says that if what you consider to be your career, if you don't find it work and you find it totally enjoyable, then you're not really stressing and working. You're just evolving and having fun, right? And I really cradle that really close. I keep that really close because that's I'm very grateful for the opportunities that come knocking on my door and have knocked on my door, and we've built extensive bridges out of them. That it's not easy. There's millions and millions of creative folk out there that could probably just blow me away with the breath. You know what I mean? But that's not what this is all about. This is all about your expression and how you're able to release it. Some artists who don't do commercial work, they're able to really release it and just put it out there. When you're an illustrator, which is different than just an artist, you have an agenda, you have an itinerary, you have a goal, and that goal is not only your goal but your client's goal, right? And you got to get them there. We got to get there, right? With the less amount of over investment. Nobody wants to go over the tally that we're basically estimating this relationship to go into. You know what I mean? And that's not easy because a lot of artists are introverts, and we don't deal well with criticism, and we don't like to be we like to consider our creativity as an extension of us, and as an artist you're like, hey, that's my kid, don't mess around with it. You're messing around with it, you're messing around with me. Yeah, exactly. And when you're an illustrator, you got to be the opposite. You got to be a bit more constructive. You got to be you got to be able to communicate and really be a benefit, or at least have help other people see the benefit of what you're bringing to the table. The values or the eccentrics that you're bringing to the table of something that's unexpected, right? That's what happens with a lot of these properties that are just so iconic. They've been out there for over 40 years or more, and so many different artists have paid tribute to them.
Right.
That when it comes onto my lap, I'm like, whew, all right, okay, what's been done? And I'll do the whole investigation of looking what's been done out there from a official professional paid endeavor to a fan art. The last thing I want to do is try to come up with an idea that's going to be way too close or too similar to something that somebody's already put out there. And even worse, maybe somebody who put it out there out of just a passion or tribute that never got paid. I would hate for me being a paid professional artist to put something that somebody was like, oh man, that's my idea, I did that a few years ago. So part of my curriculum when I'm basically starting any project is doing the homework, and sometimes it takes a while, it's just not, hey, let me do just one Google search. Like, I'm very curious. I'll keep on going day after day while I'm on the project. And if something pops up, I'm like, oop, I haven't shown the client yet, but there's already 2 artists that have kind of a similar idea. Scrap it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go into a different realm here. You just going off of there've been multiple people that have done numerous artwork on comic book properties.
Oh,
and
yeah.
When I saw your work, I'm trying to take off the J card because I want to show every single ounce of this. When I saw what you did with Venom and how you put the actual wording in his mouth, I was blown away, man. This thing is phenomenal.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Yeah. Again, I was basically coming off the whole Walmart Day of the Dead series, word of mouth, right? And I said, how can I keep on owning that word of mouth? Let me see if I could play with it for Venom. You know, side profile, totally worked. And oof. Oh man, I had way too much fun on that one. Way too much fun.
It's good. I also thought you did this artwork with Alien, and I want that on a steelbook pronto. It looks amazing.
Oh man, yeah, that Alien, man, that's one of my signature pieces in my portfolio, and that was an official piece for 20th Century Fox. It was an exclusive for New York Comic Con 2016, I think. And I've had so many people come up and be like, hey, you know, even 20th Century Fox themselves be like, hey, you know, can we put that on the commemorative DVD? And I was like, well, you guys own it. You tell me. I mean, and they never attempted to do it, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's all from that whole lot, you know, word of mouth, you know, series that I was totally, you know, loving when I was first starting off.
Just along for the ride, man. Yeah.
But thank you. There's so many people that to this day that they'll see and they'll be like, and then I'll point out the alien, you know, in the whole, you know, face of it, and they'll be like, oh, I never saw that. I've been seeing this like every year, you know. Yeah.
That is,
you know, those are cool moments, man, when you meet up with folks and you just say, did you see this Easter egg in there? And
absolutely. Like, oh. Yeah. You say that like they wanted that 20th Century Fox wanted to use that and put it on the DVD. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet, especially if you're paying the artist to put promotional stuff on there. Why not have a special feature that just goes into the making of the art? I honestly would love that.
Hey, man, I can't say too much on that, but it seems like it's something that I'm always pushing. Right. So you might see more of that being involved within certain.
Okay. We won't touch any more on it.
No. I'm just saying that I'm a big fan. You know, I'm always pushing for that on my Instagram. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow it just trickled over somehow.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. You put a lot of like time and care and going into like the time lapse of what you go into it. I'd love to actually have your commentary on it as well. That would, to me, that would be a no-brainer.
You guys don't want to listen to my voice, you know, on some DVD.
Anytime you can get into like the mind of the artist and be like, okay, how did I make this? My process, your love of the IP, like you obviously have.
Hey, you know what, man? I think you're onto that, man. I think you should write into a few folks, man.
Yeah. I'll send this along. I'll clip this part out, send some emails, see what I can do for you.
Definitely. You know, I think there's more. You know what? To be honest with you, there's more and more of us of that behind the scenes thing being kind of entertaining within some of the web posters or the web drivers that are used to help drive awareness of certain releases. Right. Yeah. When I got recently commissioned to do a piece for Blue Beetle, right, for that release. For Warner Brothers in DC, part of the contract was, hey, record your sessions, record your evolution of it, because we want to basically have the post also show kind of the start to finish of it. That's cool. So, you know, they're paying attention, you know, as far as having a real commentate, you know, me, you know, having an audio commentating what I'm doing. Oh man, that's just icing on the cake though, man.
One promotional artwork that did this recently on one of your recent steelbooks was Black Panther Wakanda Forever. They did a very good promotion of like both artists that did the different steelbooks and the background of how you made the artwork happen.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this Tolokin steelbook, folks, for Wakanda Forever, it is beautiful.
Hey, thank you so much. No, that's a special piece within my portfolio as well. Sure. I mean, I didn't think that, you know, I would get to share an aspect of my heritage in such a degree, in such a high peak.
Right. Yeah.
You know, Marvel, you know,
huge Huge Marvel IP, absolutely.
Big, huge Marvel IP where, I was working. I hate the word working. I was playing with doing posters for regional box office giveaways, and I had done one of Shuri in her Black Panther armor, and it was sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that deal was to do Namor in the same treatment, and they were going to basically give it away as a paired gift poster with ticket purchase. And I was doing this the week before I was going to fly out to MCM London, right?
What is MCM?
MCM London is kind of London's Comic-Con, annual Comic-Con.
Gotcha.
I wasn't a guest for them. I was just going to drop in and say hi to my friends. Plus, I had business to do in London, so I was like, hey, that's perfect timing.
Sure.
But I was bugging out because I was rushing to get these two posters done. And when I did the Shuri one, I sent that in. And when I started doing the Namor, I had done just the face portion to get it through resemblance approvals.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow they were like, hey, he looks great, but we're only going to do one. So I was like, oh, man, okay. So I guess we're just doing Shuri. And then somehow a few days later, before my actual flight out to London, they came back and they're like, hey, they want to use it, but they want to do the steelbook for it. And I was like, whoa! I was like, no way. I was like, hi, all right, let's do it. I was like, let's do it. When do they want it? And they're like, can you get a majority of it done before you take off on the plane? And
Oh my God.
I take off on the plane in 2 days, And I was like, and I only have this much of the face done. I was like, okay, sure, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
You and your short timelines, man, though. You're good on a crunch.
Hey, man. I should get that as a t-shirt. Good as,
crunch time.
Crunch time. Crunch Pro. But I think that's when there's a project that gives me like 6 months, which hardly ever happens. But if I was to have 6 months on a project, it would be really, really tough. I'm one of those folks that I like crunch time. Not that I stress out too much about it. I like the fact that it helps me focus.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me stop the whole second guessing aspect that a lot of creatives go through. Is this good enough? No, that's this idea sucks. And when I'm on this timeline of having to get something done within 2 weeks or less,
mm-hmm.
that's when I'm totally proficient upon. Okay, what's the brief? What's the goal? And what's the subject matter? What are the properties? How well does the audience know them? Do they have any signature characteristics that 80% of the audience will recognize with?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because if it's too eccentric and too odd of a character, and it's not something that's globally known, then it might not be the right type of direction to go with visually, right? So when I'm able to really itemize and build up these kind of guardrails, right, and still have an open dialogue with the client,
mm-hmm.
that I'm able to just either WhatsApp, hey, send a question, or an email, right, or do a Zoom. Having that client participation is vital, not just to hold up the relationship, but it's vital as far as trading ideas right off and making sure that we're capitalizing on the timeline that's available to us instead of going over budget.
Yeah. So
it helps me just totally finite, think, draw, get it done, send it in, and that's just the whole process. And I love it. I hate having too much time to second guess and be like, that's not good enough. And then maybe it is. And then maybe it is. And then,
sure. Yeah, because more often than not, you're always going to turn it in and they're always going to have thoughts anyway. So you're going to have to change something up. So you might as well just kind of get it done, put it out there and see what they have to say.
No, you're absolutely right. And then there's times where, I'm working on 4 or 5 different projects, 4 or 5 different clients.
Sure.
During that month or during that week. And, sometimes I'm on one machine and I'll hit save, and maybe that save might take 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just jump over to my second machine and I'll have a different project, a different file open. I'll go, okay, let's jump on this for a little while and totally shift gears. So a lot of people are like, hey, don't you get burnt out? And I'm like, well, sometimes I'll have too many things too many interests going on that I can't get burnt out. I just have way too much going on. So it keeps my interests and my creativity kind of peaking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my studio's set up in a way that I've got, multiple machines, thanks to Z by HP, really, where it's like, it's, at heart, to the very root of it, I'm a traditional artist, just playing with contemporary tools.
Mm-hmm.
So my studio is really set up that way. I have my drafting table, my traditional aspect here, but you know what? Right on it, I'll have my Z book, right? That allows me to turn it into a tablet.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I have
Very
everything within, my fingertips to really play and get things done. Right. So just like in a traditional painter's, studio with multiple canvases and easels,
mm-hmm.
I have the same thing, but they're computers. You know what I mean? So if one computer is taking too long to save, or I get stuck and I just want to shift over and pivot onto a whole different property, I've got it.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, that doesn't come easy. I mean, that's a lot of hard work and a lot of hard
especially when you're creative,
and
you don't want to worry about waiting on technology. So if you have like two things going on and one of them is taking forever, or you just have a totally different idea, you got another one to go off of right away. Say, what happens if I do this over here?
Yeah. I mean, I love what I do, and I love every opportunity to collaborate and team up with folks, So, I'm glad that I also have a wife that's very supportive upon the fact that she's like, hey, she'll knock on the door and say, hey, you've been in there too long. Come on out. You got to get out. Come breathe, man. Let's go for a walk. Let's take dogs to the park. Or you know what? Right. She did it today. She was like, hey, come on, let's go out. Let's get out of here for a little while.
You're worried about getting the work done. She's worried about you. You got to have that. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I love it to death for that reason. Seriously.
There you go, man. Okay, so you did some work on Black Panther stuff. You also did another Marvel character, Punisher, and you were able to do Punisher twice, which is very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
First one I'll show off is the first Punisher you did with the glass breaking through the slipcover. Another very cool idea to incorporate that into.
Again, man, that's a lot of just round table spitballing with Lionsgate, with the whole team over there. And they're like, hey, again, we didn't have time for true actor resemblances, so we had to basically play around with different items, right? So yeah, we totally had to darken half his face. Like that's the legal aspect of it.
Oh, really?
But they were like, how are we going to use the slip card, right? Because we were just coming off doing Ghost in the Shell, right? Yeah. So they were like, oh no, how cool is the slip card or the slipcase going to be? And I was like, oh man, I don't know. It could be totally this, could totally be that. It could totally, we could totally have like the signature skull like lead into like a whole big scene. And somebody took that and they're like, hey, how about if it's like shards of glass, like bullet fragments or something? And then from the bullet fragments we were just like, oh man, how about if it's just a city just exploding and like all these shards are coming at you, but like the OT card are kind of giving you a window within that perspective until you open it up and you see that it's that it's Frank Castle totally walking away and totally like hitting the the button. So
one thing I didn't notice about this release, every time I look at your stuff, I am first just enchanted by the image, and then you look closer, you see little details you didn't notice before. You think of Punisher and the skulls. There's so many skulls and the explosions within the skull. Absolutely love that. Again, another
hey, man, I love throwing Easter eggs in there, right? It's part of like the way that I used to do a lot of my my earlier artwork, whether they were like small little tags or small little murals. I would throw things in there so that it would help promote kind of like that double take, that longevity. No, I really don't like a painting that you just look at it and if you're there taking it in at the museum, or from the magazine or whatever, and you're like, okay, 2 minutes or 1 minute into it, you're like, okay, I'm done. I already saw it. For me, I want somebody to own it. If they're going to own it, I want them to come back and be like, just like you did, like, oh, whoa, I didn't see that.
Yes.
And it's already been a few months. I didn't see that. Or you open up the next time. Oh, I didn't see that either. that's basically a really cool creative investment there to make sure that you, the audience, the collectors, have found the reasons to really invest and add this artwork to your collection, to your high
Agreed.
altar.
And honestly, Lionsgate probably is the strongest, most consistent when it comes to steelbook releases, just because they care about the art that they put on their
Oh
releases
man,
and every inch of it too. They just go above and beyond. I'm always speechless.
I have no problem telling you that I love. They know this, man. They're
Hmm.
like family. I love being called up and going, "Hey, oh, you want to play? We want to play again?" I'm like, "Yep, let's go." It's a lot of fun because they're,
Yeah.
they have a really good appreciation for the artists and their portfolio, and you know, um, they like to team up with folks that are willing to push, not just settle and say, "Hey, yeah, this is what I do. Let me spit one out for you."
Hmm.
They like things that have an idea, have a concept, have a reason for being, that will tie into the actual visual DNA of that property. And
Hmm.
especially if that property has a bunch of different episodes and sequels, even more of having to investigate for that investment,
Hmm.
and they Lionsgate rocks. I
Yeah.
mean, so do all the other folks that I get to team up with. But there's differences within budgets and titles. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. Not what I get paid for. I mean, just overall in the case of budget.
Right. Yeah.
With certain with other clientels or other studios, I might, they might offer me this much, and I'll go, okay, let's get it done. But you know what? Let's save a little bit. So I'll take a hit.
Hmm.
I'll take a hit. That way, at the tail end, if we want to do something extravagant, I know that we could get it done because I've taken a reduction within the pay. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? There's 2,000 over here available
Hmm.
to do this. I didn't inhale all of your budget to the point where now we can't do any embossing, we can't do any varnishing, we can't do anything cool.
Right.
So when that happens, I had studios go, and man, you really like to collaborate with us. Like, it's just not a money making thing for you. It's like
Hmm.
you really care about the end product. I'm like, yeah, because I want to make sure that the community and the fans out there want it.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's got your name on it. It's got your art on it. So I would think that you would want this to be above and beyond, like something different than what a normal steelbook would be like. It stands out in your collection.
Sure, sure, but
Yeah.
hey, I'm invested as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't mind going, hey, let's save a few dollars here and see
Hmm.
if we could use them on the tail end to really make this thing like shine when it's
Sure.
at Walmart or at Best Buy or at Target,
Right. Yeah.
or
Make it
just
pop off the shelf.
online,
Yeah. Hmm.
So
I am
I enjoy it.
curious though. You did the first Punisher. I'm assuming that one sold so well that they did the sequel, Punisher Warzone. What is the creative process like? Do you want the second one to be totally different from the first one? You don't want to like repeat yourself too much on that? Because this, you look at it, just oh Jesus, okay, infrared red slipcover. This definitely stands out. We got it.
Hey, my one of the relation, the main one of the main aspects of my relationship with Lionsgate, directly with that home crew, right? Especially with Aaron Gershon, is
Hmm.
that you know I need to bring like really new stuff to help promote something different for home entertainment,
Sure.
right? I know that they've got the budget. They're willing to have the conversations to make sure that we can get there.
Hmm.
So when it came time to do Punisher Warzone, I wasn't aware that it wasn't like, hey, let's do one Punisher and then let's do the next one.
Hmm.
I did the first one, and it was because of the Steelbook community on Reddit that they started posting and saying, "Oh man, make them do Warzone. We want
Sure.
Warzone."
Yeah.
So the community, really opened the door for me on that one, and told, kind of nudged Lionsgate to say, "Listen, you know what? We don't care whether some people think that it's a really god awful movie,
Hmm.
but we want to see Warzone done by Mexifunk."
Hmm.
And they called me up and they're like, "Hey, listen, the community wants you to do
Yeah.
Punisher Warzone." And I was like, "Oh man, all right, yeah." Let's
You hear
do it.
that, listeners? People actually do listen to their customer base. That's
Oh
good
my
to hear.
God.
A lot of people don't know that.
Are you kidding me, man? And that's cool thing about Lionsgate is that they really, really are embedded with so many different online communities, whether it's Reddit, whether it's a few others, that they're actually participating with listening to the audience and going, hey, what did you like about this? What did you not like about that?
Yeah.
What do you like about these upcoming titles? And when we got ready to do Warzone, I was going crazy. I was going crazy with
Why is that?
what is the the slipcase going to do?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to reveal it, right? And if you look at my portfolio with them, Warzone is probably the most minimalistic slipcase out of
But
the whole portfolio.
it stands out because it's red.
It's just red. I mean, but there's no artwork on it,
Right.
So leading up to that, I was always challenging myself to try to bring new solutions, new innovative, ways to tell that visual narrative in that two-step functionality of removing the OT card.
When you do reveal it, it is just so drastically different from the red. It definitely pops the first time you take it out of there.
Oh man, thanks. That's exactly what I was going for, and it was hysterical. Do I have that big Ruby Lith sheet somewhere close by? No, I was conducting Zooms, right, with Lionsgate, and I would have this big acrylic red lens Ruby Lith piece of acrylic that I would have a second camera over my shoulder, and I would place it over the artwork so I could show them.
Sure.
This is what I want the slipcase to do.
It's smart. What I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And once I was able to demonstrate it to that level, they're like, "Oh man," And I was like, "Yeah, the Ruby Lith will act as the infrared scope, or trying to always bring some type of association to it. I just don't like to do things just because I think that's cool. I always like to give it reason back to the main property, right?
Sure.
So with that, I was really excited because I was like, man, I hope the printing goes right. They're doing so many different tests on the printing to make sure that we got the right Ruby Lith that's going to basically isolate and cancel out all the other colors.
Yeah, I bet there were so many drafts of just getting the right tint.
Oh man, they really invested their time, and they were like, man, if we've already invested so much on the upfront, then we have to basically do our share of the back end and making sure that this gets produced the way that you sold it to us. And again, that's a perfect harmony, man, between an artist and a client request. You know what I mean? So
it's very cool when a company actually is like right there with you and like, we want to make sure this is perfect, just like you do. Let's get this right.
Yeah, and there's not too many of them out there. There's not too many of them out there.
Sure.
But I'm glad that they're there. I could say kind of the same thing with when I'm teaming up with Shout Factory. Totally different commodity. Smaller studio, so maybe a smaller budget, but yet it doesn't take away from what I'm willing to collaborate with them. It's not. I'm not one of these artists that's like, oh well, if the budget's so different, man, I can only give you this. You know what I mean?
But yet, if they might have a smaller budget than some, but you can still come out with amazing releases like this. This Pumpkinhead, oh my god, looked amazing, dude. Such striking imagery. My god.
Oh man.
Looks so good.
I love this creature, man. This horrible demon, man. I have always been a fan of just the creature itself, man. I had the action figure, I mean the whole McFarlane figure. I mean, I love Pumpkinhead. Right? I think it's because there's aspects of like an alien xenomorph within his roots somewhere, right? Somewhere in there, right? But he's a whole different color, and he's a demon, and his hands are like from my tip of my finger to my elbow, that's just his palm, right? He's got these really absurd proportions that I'm just like, oh my god, they're fantastic, right?
Such a weird creature, yeah.
When they called me up for this property, they were like, hey, you're a big fan of Pumpkinhead? And I was like, big, huge legends. Yes, you know what? Enough said. Let's get started.
Mm-hmm.
You know what are the watch outs? What you know? And there were a few watch outs on this one because of personalities, and you know, again, you can't use the resemblances. So this ended up going through a few modifications through its evolution, but I'm so happy with the way that it turned out and how they produced it. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, one really cool thing with playing with Shout Factory and what they offer to the audiences is that whole like limited edition lithograph of
Yeah.
the steelbook or
Yep.
the DVD,
Mm-hmm.
right? And oh man, I love that they do that. You
Yeah.
know, I love that they do that. You know, I think this year was like one of the biggest years that I got the opportunity to play so much with Shout Factory. We did this year. We released a Creepshow,
Mm-hmm.
and before the year started, we had released Carrie.
I was gonna say I don't have Creepshow, but I do have Carrie.
Oh
and
man,
this is a great release, man.
I haven't had that one physically in my hands yet.
Oh really?
You know?
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm in Colombia, so like you know, collecting physical media down here isn't like you know,
Sure.
more poor folk down here. But like all of this stuff gets sent over to my sister's, my sister or my brother's house, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like my pseudo warehouse, which I really love. Thank you so much, you guys, if you're paying attention and you're signing on to this. And I'm like, when are you gonna come by and pick this stuff up? You know,
Yeah.
but this one I had a whole different concept.
Yeah, because you did the Carrie one before in that day of the
Yeah,
Dead
this
line.
is the second time, man. I was like,
Right.
wow, okay, cool. How many artists get to actually officially do, you know, I can understand posters, but like actually get to do two different, you know, steel books in, you know, within the whole generation timeline. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not like, you know, they came to me when I was 90, you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I did that a long time
No.
ago.
And I didn't
You
know if
know,
some
but-
people would have like a creativity slump in their mind, like, what do I do to make this different? You just seem to be like, okay, I love this property. Let's get into it. I got tons of
Oh
ideas.
man, just wait till, you know, I could show the sketch for that one later on. You know, I got to wait a few years. I think I have it in the contract. I'm like, hey, if I could wait, you know, past 5 years, I mean, 3 years, that I could start showing some of the behind the scenes. I'm getting smart on this legal stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yep, definitely watch your back. That's for sure.
you know, but I could describe what one of the concept was. And I mean, that the one that got printed, I'm really happy with the way that it turned out because I really wanted to show the chaos and just, you know, the hell on earth in that prom scene, you know, in the gymnasium.
Yep.
But initially it was going to be something that was like really close up, and you were seeing like her fear and anger at the same time with the, you know, pig's blood dripping down her face.
Yeah.
You know, and just like this ghoulish just manner. And like in the reflection of her eye, you were seeing everyone burning in the gymnasium.
Oh, Jesus.
You know?
That would be crazy. I think Arrow Video had a steelbook like that where it was just Carrie engulfed in flames on the cover.
Yeah.
It was very striking. Yeah. I want you to get your hands on this steelbook. It's kind of sad that you haven't done that yet because they have, I don't know if you can see this. There's like some texture pops on here that are different that just make it feel different depending on like where you grab it. It's really cool.
Oh man, they're over at my brother's, man. You know, I'll probably have them sent, you know, FedEx it to me while I'm going to be in the States next week. So
yeah, no, you should.
I'll have it. I'll have it soon.
It definitely feels distinct. It feels distinct and unique.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Let's see here. For the last one, I'll end with another Scream Factory one that you did, and that was My Bloody Valentine.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I had too much fun on the concept side of that.
You
know, that's a tough one. That was a really tough one because everything that was established was basically around the whole coal miner, you know, breathing mask and the lenses, and you know, there was so much really clever, you know, usages of that, and I was like, what the hell am I gonna do here, man? You know, and I had like Cupid flying around, like decapitating people, and,
oh Jesus,
you know, dressed up as the miner, and you know, people were laughing. They're like, oh, that's really cool, but you know, we don't know if we could do that. We want something a bit more closer to the property. And I was just like, you know what? Let's just have, you know, the miner dragging somebody by, you know, with his pitchfork, and like he's bleeding hearts, and in the hearts we'll have, you know, all these signature people just crying or like in fear, right? And they're like, oh man, that sounds wicked, man. Can you make that happen? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but why would the hearts be bleeding and floating? And I was like, I don't know, man. We're in this world of like just dance.
Let the art flow.
You know
Let
what I
the
mean?
art flow. That's what I always say, man.
Let's just have fun with
Yeah.
it, man. We don't have to be so literal, man. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun, and again, that one came with its own limited edition. I think it was 18 by 24 or 24 by 36 lithograph. Sometimes they vary in scale, but the
Screen
quality
Factory's
is
very
just
good at,
awesome, man.
Yeah, including an art print. It's very nice of them.
Oh man, I love that they do that. So it's really
Well,
cool. It was an honor too, because there's so many different artists that have paid tribute to that one title, and it's not one of these big Hollywood blockbuster horror flicks that that everybody has
like
seen.
horror fans know and love for sure.
Yeah, you've totally got to be like a horror fan to within the bone marrow in order to be like, oh yeah, we've got that one. I saw that one, and rattle off some background history or appreciation of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's cool stuff. It's really cool stuff.
Absolutely agree.
But what do we have now? I think we just released we just teased the other day the whole Ring 3 film box set.
I do have an image of that to share because I literally, that timing couldn't have worked out any better. I'm like, oh, you're on the podcast and you just had something released like yesterday. How cool is that?
It was wild. It was wild. I was getting back from doing Halloween 45 with Printed in Blood, right? And I'm on the plane, and I was like, do I buy that extra like Wi-Fi package to stay connected? And I'm glad that I did, because next thing you know, it's like boom, and it popped up on my radar, right? And I was just like, oh my God, they just released this. Awesome. Let me help out. And I love trying to help, draw awareness to any of these releases, whether it's mine or someone, one of my buddies, or just whether it's cool artwork and I don't even know the artist yet. I mean, I just love, promoting and supporting. But this thing was phenomenal, man. I had so much fun with this because I wanted to get crazy, but yet I wanted to contain myself in a way, like the way that the character, was contained so much in the belly of this well,
And that's the most striking piece from that entire filmography, is just like the creature reaching out of the television. Yeah, I mean, that does a lot of the work for you, but the way you illustrated it looks very nice.
Oh, thanks, man. I had to get that puddle reflection like down packed, because without that hint of water or liquid, it's you miss the whole boat,
Right. No, that makes sense. There was one more that's coming out, I want to say this month, next month, and that is the Steelbook that I'm very excited for Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a Nova Media title, a premium Steelbook. Very excited that you're stepping your toes into this water.
Oof, man. Yeah, man. That's another big thank you to the community, man, because Manta Labs on their Instagram had put out kind of a call to artists like, hey, would you like to collaborate with us and send us your portfolio? And I wasn't following Manta Labs on Instagram at the time, and somebody had tagged me and said, you definitely need to team up with Mexifunk, man. Any title, just team up with Mexifunk. And I was like, whoa. I immediately hit him on the DM, sent them links, right? Even to my LinkedIn profile. I was like, hey, just in case you need to look at my whole resume, here it is. You know what I mean? Because I don't have a website. I haven't had a website for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Well, honestly, every single thing that I've shown off here is from your Instagram page. Like, that is the best resource anybody can have. I think I said it earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, I do agree. That and LinkedIn, if you can, LinkedIn for more of a professional,
a timeline, tactic, if you will. Yeah.
But they came back and they're like, hey, we just kind of like asked around about you. And we asked the folks over at A24 whether they would like for us to team up with you. And they were like, hands down, get Mexifunk.
Very cool.
And I was like, oh, man, that's coming from A24. Holy crap, man. That's great. That's great, because I'm a big fan of A24. And I would love to team up and do another Steelbook, with them or through an affiliated studio.
Yeah.
But this was something else because it was working directly with Asia. So a whole different timeline, time frame, time zone, and they were kind of like They were a bit concerned upon like, hey, how are we going to do this? What's the way that you want to evolve this? And I
There's so many
basically let
routes you
them
could
know.
go with this movie too. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's all over the place.
and there's already so much good artwork out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, how am I going to really flow in to be a part of that visual, family, right? It's not about, hey, how can I beat out what already has been existing? This isn't a race or a competition. It's just, how can I do something that's going to be of that standard, of that value, And I was just like, hey, listen, you know what? Definitely going to have kind of a two-level element to this, two-level stage. I'm going to have the front cover be the whole family with her in her signature pose, not too far away from what's already been approved globally as the main poster. But on the back end, I'm going to have the whole arsenal of bad guys coming down the stairs or posed on the stairs.
Sure.
Right. So that, when you open it up, they're facing each other, like they're about to stand off and fight it out. But then behind that, I'm going to totally have us visually see this morph of her through all these different dimensions and personalities,
man,
and hopefully ended up with her, shedding a few tears, coming to the realization that it's all about hope and appreciation and family time, without giving away too much of the movie again. You know what I mean?
Just like with your other Steel books, like you look at them a third, fourth time, you see something new. I can't even imagine with this one. Every single pixel on here is going to just be crammed with new stuff to look at and be like, oh wow, I did not see that. Can't wait.
Yeah, no, I put so much into it. It's like a lot of my illustrations, I go really, really hell bent to like make it like stand out and yell across the dimensions. And with this one, I was like, okay, I got to be a bit more refined in a matter of the storytelling and respectful in a way of not creating so much visual chaos and making it sing, making it
no, because
making it cradle everything.
That movie, you could definitely put way too much on the image and make it way too crowded. I don't think this is the case. I think this one has like enough breathing room around it just to kind of incorporate everything and still have it look just spectacular.
Oh yeah, Manta Labs was like, oh man, where are you going with the color? I'm not understanding the color usage, and where are the flares going to come in, and like what's going on here? And I was just like, just hold up, man. I'll totally take care of your questions and just the next round. Yeah.
And always the first time working with a company, I would assume they always have a lot of questions for you. But the more you work with the company, they know your workflow, and they just kind of they
were happy because when the pre-order window opened up, and I'm always telling the studios, hey man, let me know when you're going to put up the pre-order window. Send me the link. That way I can at least try to help out. Some folks, because it's such a big studio or different, personalities that work there, that are employed there. Sometimes they forget to send me a link or give me notice of what's going to go out there. With Manta Labs, I made it. I was there every day with the WhatsApp, like, hey man, make sure you let me know. Make sure you let me know. Make sure you let me know. And they did. And when they did, I posted it up. And we sold out with Thunder. We sold out all copies in the pre-order window in less than 12 minutes.
Yeah, it was fast.
And that was like a record for me. And they were just like, this is nuts. We've never seen anything like this. Anything like this. To sell out all of our copies globally in 12 minutes. So, I mean, obviously, I throw that down on my LinkedIn, like for this header. I'm like, yeah, sold out, pre-order in 12 minutes. Wow!
Right. Please call for inquiries. Call. Yeah.
So it's like, whenever I get the opportunity to play with another studio or that's like, hey, we want to do this. I'm like, hey, let me know if send me the pre-order stuff, man. I don't know if we'll do better than 12 minutes. I hope so, but like that's a tough number to beat, man.
Yeah,
seriously.
If anyone's up to it, I know you are, man. Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks. But I mean, I've seen limited edition prints that certain galleries sell in less than 5 minutes, and that's cool, man. Those are prints. We're talking about like, we're talking about DVDs here, and how there's retailers, global retailers involved in having something like that on a mass scale. Whew, I gotta start brushing up my contracts and add in like, hey, I need 5% of royalties of net gross. just to be honest, I mean, we're all business people, man.
Yeah. Nope. You're always updating that agreement contract. Absolutely. Well, I think we've been going almost 2 hours here. I appreciate your time. There's one more thing I wanted to touch on before we end. I noticed the Michael Myers mask behind you. I don't know if you did this because of I don't know if we talked earlier. I don't think we did. The next episode of my podcast, I'm going to have on the Convicted Cinephile, and we're talking about the Scream Factory box set of Halloween.
Wow,
so
I did not know that.
I'm like, how perfect is this?
Wow, what a lead in, man. Wow, okay.
It's October. It's perfect to talk Halloween. This set is like one of the holy grails for a lot of different collectors. I can't wait to break into this. And when I saw that on your backdrop, just kind of his face floating out there, I it was just like couldn't work out any more perfectly. But I know that you also had like a book that you were working on with Halloween illustrations. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's up there for reference purposes. I mean, if I could hold up my camera a little bit, you know, well, you can't see the sketchbook there, but yeah, that thing's been there for the past few months, just for reference purposes, because I was commissioned by Compass International and Printed in Blood to team up and do the illustrated renovelization of the 1978 story that was only, you know, released as a first issue and never printed ever again as a paperback. And Printed in Blood got the green light, and they came to me and said, hey, listen, how quickly can we get this? How quickly can we get over 106 illustrations done? Can we get them done within 5 weeks? And I was like, at that time when they asked, I had just finished doing 94 NFTs within 4 days, right? So I was like, yeah, I was all cocky, and I'm like, yeah, I can get that stuff done. Probably less time, you know, but it's an honor. It's an honor to actually be the guy who actually puts the visualization of the novel into context with Printed in Blood. And it's a very, it's not going to be your standard paperback size. You know, it's going to be your standard Printed in Blood 9x12 big coffee table book format.
Very cool.
And oh man, so yeah, I've had that. I've had Michael over my shoulder for quite a bunch of weeks now. I can't say a few weeks. I mean, it's been a labor of love, man. Honestly.
I love the cover. I love how the leaves are falling with the knives with Michael Myers' mask.
Yeah,
very, very cool touch.
I'll tell you, man. That actual illustration came from Printed in Blood's first Halloween tribute, which was printed and released 2 years ago. You know, it had over 100 different global international artists, and that was one of the illustrations within that book. The reason why we decided to use it as one of the covers for this novelization was that I had illustrated 2 different covers. One of them was a homage to the actual illustration from Bantam Books for the cover, right? And they asked me, hey, would you have any problems revisiting that, sticking close to it, but giving it some Mexifunk, you know, signature flares and color? And I said, no, it would be an honor, you know. Sure. It's not, you know, I don't have any egos on this, you know, let's do it. And then the second one, I had illustrated your signature Michael up on the stairs. Mm-hmm. And when we sent it through for approvals, Malik came back and he was like, you know what? I don't want this image because it's too much. It's been used over and over and over again by so many different entities, and it has too much of kind of this mystique to the film.
Okay.
Right. And at the moment I was like scratching my head going, really? I was like, oh man. And he was like, this is the renovelization, the second print ever of the original storyline by Curtis Richards, or Richard Curtis. I always get the name. I get the dyslexia thing. But he's from New York. He's a Bronx boy, just like me. So you got 2 Bronx boys in this one. You know, that's another trivia thing. But Malik was like, I want this to be, the title is Halloween Illustrated. So I want a more illustrated depiction of the story for the front cover. I don't want something that's already been beaten to death as a visual icon for the movie.
That's got to be so freeing to hear too. Just he wants you to go wild on an IP and movie that everybody knows. Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
We're up against the clock. So, you know, Printed in Blood was like, hey, we have this one from that he's done that I did 2 years ago, and they're like, that's it. That's what I want. Put that on the cover. So, you know, in a way, I was like, well, okay, great. I don't have to create another one. Although I did. There were like 2 or 3 different alternate covers, which you'll get to see when the book gets printed, because we'll be putting that stuff in, layer it in with some behind the scenes stuff. But as far as the covers, you know, I'm glad that he made that decision, because he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. You know, there's certain visual compositions for Michael Myers, you know, for Halloween 1978, that, you know, are kind of ingrained within our visual appreciation for the film.
Oh yeah.
But this isn't about the film. This is about the novel.
Yep.
And there's so much that, you know, if you haven't read the paperback, there's so much early on before you even get to contemporary 1978 Michael Myers that are the building blocks of why he's so the way that he is. You know,
well, riddle me intrigued, man. I've only seen the movie, but I've not read the novelization or anything. Man. Yeah.
I'll just tell you this. It goes all the way back to like the celebration of Celtic Samhain, you know, the whole Halloween celebration back then of the Celts, and it just goes through the bloodline, you know, and all the misery and mayhem that's associated with it. You know, so I mean, there's so much more within the novelization that wasn't really scripted in or visualized within, you know, the silver screen. So I'm seriously, man, I'm so honored to be part of this brand history, man. Seriously, thank you so much to Compass, to Malik, and seriously, thank you so much to Steve Hove and Phil Lawrence over at Printed in Blood. Honestly, those guys, man, I love them to death, man. Seriously.
Another,
and I can't, you know, if
mark on.
There's still a chance to pre-order this book, you know.
There you go.
So definitely go up on, you know, printedinblood, you know, .com, that their shop, and you'll see, you know, you'll see the book and the prints. Actually, there's 2 prints that, you know, 2 covers returned into limited edition prints.
Very cool.
So have your heart at it, man. Go at it.
Yeah. I guess I have one last question before you go. You've worked on so many IPs. Is there one dream project that you would love to take a crack at?
Oh man.
Don't mean to put you on the spot or anything.
No, man. There's so many. There's so many.
Yeah.
There's literally so many that are coming up, and there's so many that have already been established. From the ones that are established, you know, the first movie that I've ever gone to go see, which was that my father snuck us in to the drive-in theater by covering us up with blankets. That's how far back I go. You know, drive-in theaters were a common thing, you know, in the days that I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the first one was Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon.
Oh,
right.
It just had an anniversary this year, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Nobody called me up, man. You know,
they missed out.
You know, but I'm really big on horror. Like, my mom took us to go see this movie, and when I called her up that I got the commission, I was just like, look, you took us to go see this movie in the movie theater.
How cool.
Back in 78 or 79.
Yeah. And
she was like, whoa, holy cow. You know, and I was like, I hope they, you know, if they call me up to do Dress to Kill, that's the next title. You know what I mean? But, you know, you know, I had my father, who's a big fisherman, who took me to go see Jaws, and we would see Jaws at opening of summer, just like most people do, just because it was opening fishing season,
right, for
saltwater. So there's so much that, you know, the silver screen is totally ingrained with my upbringing and my family roots, that I'm so fortunate and so grateful that I'm able to be an artist, to contribute to their longevity and their history as just from the creative side. So, I mean, thank you so much to folks like you, collectors like you, appreciators and aficionados like you, and the community. And thanks to all the folks that work so hard at the studios, and the extensions of the studios working social. I mean, seriously, I would reach and give you guys a big freaking hug if I could.
Well, your hug was
and say
being on
thank
this
you.
podcast. It's a warm virtual hug. I appreciate it a lot. I couldn't believe you said yes to it, and I'm so happy that
No, man, of course I
Yeah.
had to, man.
Uh-huh.
Come on, and I'll keep on saying yes. I mean, if you wanted to develop like, hey, so often I'll come on and say, yeah, what's up? I'll do that. Not a problem, man. If I have the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I love giving back to the community, man, and you do so much for it that,
Well,
yeah, I had to. When you asked me, my wife was there, and I was like, look, and she was like, oh, you have to, and I was like, hands down, of course.
That's very touching. I appreciate it, and you will 1000% be my first guest I bring back, because I know I've only touched the surface on all the knowledge that you've had in the industry.
Oh man, now we've got to get you out to like Monster Palooza and do this like from the hip, man.
I would
You know what I mean?
love it. Yeah, or do this like live. I would absolutely love it. It would
Hey,
be,
man.
yeah, dream come true for me.
I'll help out definitely. Okay. You let me know.
Okay, so to be continued. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. This has been episode 4 of Boutique Talk. I appreciate everybody listening, and until next time, I'll see you.
Thank you so much, guys.